Welcome back for part 3 of our introduction to explicit instruction. So now we are going to hear from an expert on explicit instruction, and in fact, she is the author of your textbook, Dr. Anita Archer. And she's going to talk to us about what is explicit instruction. Now, before I play the video, I want to make sure I let you know up front that when the video ends, you're going to have number 4 on your participation document, and you are going to write the big ideas or your key takeaways from the video. And again, this is just what you take away. There is no right or wrong answer, but I wanted to let you know ahead of time in case you want to, put a little piece of paper beside yours or anything like that, have another document open so that you can go ahead and start thinking about the big ideas or your key takeaways. All right, let's listen to Dr. Anita Archer.
So I have the gift today of talking to you about explicit instruction. Explicit instruction simply is instruction that is quite direct, it is unambiguous, with the goal that the students would get it, would understand it, and would learn. We have a lot of confusion around the term explicit instruction, so let me sort of augment and add to that. One question I'm often asked is, wouldn't it be more motivating for students to learn it on their own, to discover it, to use authentic problems to discover it? And it's as if we have set up a total dichotomy between explicit instruction and discovery, but we really should view it as a continuum. And when we look at the research on instruction, we learn what are the attributes of that continuum. For example, if you are teaching children that are novices, that have just never learned this body of knowledge in the past, it appears that they do much better if we explicitly teach them the information, whether it's knowledge or skills or strategies, that we teach it. If they are learning a body of knowledge that they've not learned in the past, they're brand new to algebra, they are new to decoding of words, then they really benefit from very explicit instruction. So those two things, when the student is a novice, when the knowledge is new, explicit instruction would be desirable. But then after you've gained lots of information, you've gained lots of skills, then discovery is much more a viable option, but only after you've had explicit instruction. So one of the things that I also would be reminded of is the research. If you happen to be a special ed teacher, an interventionist, and you are working with struggling students, we definitely know that they are going to gain more with very explicit instruction than discovery. You know, if they had discovered it, they would not have been struggling. And so we need to have very explicit instruction for them. And what would that mean? Well, we could actually take explicit instruction and put it into two areas. One is the design of the instruction, and the other is the delivery of the instruction. And the design of the instruction means that we pick important content to teach them, we break it down into obtainable pieces, but then our lessons are organized so that more learning could occur. For example, I often talk about 3 major steps in teaching children skills and strategies, where I do demonstration, guided practice, checking for understanding. I do it, we do it, you do it. And many of the skills and strategies we teach would follow that pedagogy. But it also means that the students are not only directly taught it, but they have practice. And actually, I'm going to tell you, my concern is often that we're not giving adequate practice. I have constantly hear people say, well, you know, Anita, that is just drill and kill, drill and kill. And I can tell you, we have no reported incidents of children dying of practice. Instead, look at the research, the abundant research from cognitive science and from learning on practice. The students need deliberate practice where they're practicing with a purpose. They need practice that is spaced over time, not all in one session. And they need to retrieve information in that practice. So it's a combination of very explicit instruction with I do it, we do it, you do it, followed with deliberate and space practice and retrieval. But here's what I've noticed. I've had the great blessing of teaching for 52 years and do demonstrations all throughout every year. And what I have noticed is that students need better delivery skills than we've done in the past. For example, all instruction needs to be interactive. I say something, you say something, I write something, you write something. All explicit instruction would be very interactive with students actively engaged throughout the entire lesson. And we would give them, we'd monitor and watch their responses, give them feedback on the responses, and we would maintain throughout the whole lesson a very perky pace. So those are some of the attributes of having very explicit instruction. And we know that then I set you up for your ability to solve authentic problems. I set you up for being successful. I set you up to generalize information to other situations. But this means we've got to keep the teach in teacher. And we have to provide the teaching that our students need. So let us never forget the research on explicit instruction. Because if learning is our goal, then a lot of explicit instruction needs to occur there. Bless you in your career. May you thrive as an educator.
I love her. All right, so here's what you're going to do now for number 4, and you can just put why explicit instruction, okay? So what I want you to do is to write down what were your big ideas, the big ideas that you found in the or learned from the video, or what were your key takeaways. And continue to remember, these are quick writes. We're just trying to get your thinking going and to put something down on paper. So put it in your Word document. At the top, you're going to say number 4, why explicit instruction. Then underneath, you're going to put your answer. And again, you're going to submit this before class on Canvas, okay? So go ahead and stop your video, and I'll see you when you get back. All right, I look forward to seeing your responses. All right, so these are some of my key takeaways. Let me say though, one of the things I wanted you to really key into is that you heard that for struggling learners, students who are struggling to learn content or skills, or if they're novices to the skill, then explicit instruction is a really strong, effective instructional strategy. And I hope that you also heard her say that explicit instruction has 2 parts. It is the design of your lesson planning and your design. And then the other one is the delivery of that explicit instruction. So there are 2 parts to that. But 2 of my key takeaways were that she talked about now, and in the next video, I want you to really listen to this because this is what the next video is going to go in more detail about. And she talked about a model that you're going to find. This is within explicit instruction, and it's called I do, we do, and then you do. So when it's I do, the teacher is modeling. And remember, this is where you're showing the teacher what you're doing. You're talking aloud. You're doing what's called a think aloud so they can hear how you think and work through a problem, an addition problem, for example. And then the next part she talked about was we do. And in we do, we're doing it together. We're doing it together. The students, the teacher, we're all working together on it. And once those students have enough practice and they're showing that they're proficient in that skill because you're assessing, remember, you're monitoring all the time. You're assessing students all the time throughout lessons and throughout the day. And when you see, oh, look, they're becoming proficient in this, they are now at the point that they are ready to move to you do, which is when they are working independently. So you're going to model I do. Then you're going to do what's called guided practice because you're going to guide the students in we do. And then they're going to have independent practice, which is the you do. But when they are in that we do stage, when they're practicing and when they're in the I do stage, we want to make sure that we have 3 kinds of practice. These were my takeaways, that it is intentional, it is deliberate, it is purposeful. We're practicing the skill that we are learning, that it is spaced out out over time. We're not only doing it in this lesson and that's the only time. We're going to practice it over time, and we're going to practice it in real world situations whenever we possibly can to make that learning more meaningful. And that students, when they're practicing, need to be retrieving their knowledge, their information. Not only that, another key takeaway was that the delivery of instruction, it needs to be interactive. Hear this. Explicit instruction is interactive. She said, I do, then you do, then I do, then you do. And so students are working. They are not just sitting there listening. You're providing feedback, and you're providing feedback consistently along the way. You're providing feedback on what they're doing correct. Way to go. I really like the way you wrote the paragraph, and you included a topic sentence. You're going to make sure that it's very specific. You're also going to provide feedback in the form of error correction. And that could be something maybe that you're going to give a guided guiding question. And you might say, go back and look at that. Make sure that you have a topic sentence. Can you find one in here? So we're going to guide you a little bit. And then it's going to move along at a perky pace. That's so funny, right? Every time I hear that, I think that sounds so silly. But what is explicit instruction? Well, you don't leave anything to chance, nothing. I'm going to explicitly and intentionally plan and deliver my instruction, leaving nothing to chance, and I'm not going to assume anything. I'm not going to assume that you're going to be able to learn that on your own. I'm not going to assume what you already know. I'm going to assess and find out and use those data-based decisions. I'm going to use that data to inform and guide my instruction. Not only that, it is very systematic. It is a very systematic way of teaching, and you're emphasizing that you are teaching these things in small steps. And so what you're going to do is take a big skill, a big task, something like long division, lots of steps in long division, and you're going to task analyze it. You're going to take that task and break it into smaller little steps. Those are called teachable steps. They're steps that are attainable by a student, and you're going to teach those in order. And once a student is able to do all of those small steps in order, then they are able to complete that bigger task. You're going to make sure that you're progress monitoring, you're checking students' understanding constantly, consistently throughout. I'm looking even at students' body language, because if you have students that are like pulling back or they're starting to look kind of anxious, that might be a student that, you could use that as a check for understanding. Or as they're doing work, I'm walking around and I'm looking over, I'm having them explain their answers to me, doing a think aloud. I'm giving them little informal assessments as we teach, checking for understanding as we go. And the other thing is we want to make sure that our students are actively and successfully participating. All students are. And I forgot to mention this about the review. Another really cool thing about the review is because you're reviewing things that you've already taught, that students have already learned. It gives them the opportunity to be successful, to experience that success in a review before you move into a new skill. But we want students to participate throughout the lesson. So we want to make sure that our lessons are engaging, that they are meaningful to our students, that we are, including students' interests, because that gets more buy-in. So again, want active and successful participation by all students. All right, we're going to watch one more video in this video. And this one is called Teaching Matters Explicit Instruction. And you're not going to have a question immediately after this, but I do want you to do this. And the reason I'm not asking questions is because I want you to listen and think. In this video, they are going to talk through the I do, we do, you do process. Remember, I do, the teacher models. We do, that's called guided practice, and we're all doing it together. And then you do is called independent practice, and that's when students are demonstrating their independence and ability to perform that skill on their own. All right, so I want you to listen to what they say about each of those phases of an explicit instruction lesson.
Hi, my My name is Angela Kirby-Ware, and I'm a Special Assistant to the Secretary of Education. We know that there is a need, and the research supports the need for effective research-based direct instruction. It has the I do piece, the teacher modeling, the we do or the guided practice, and lastly the you do or the independent practice. As a teacher, the direct instruction model is critical to ensuring that your kids get it. It's student-centered instruction, but it's teacher carefully delivered and designed instruction.
Our essential question today is, what is a name collection?
I'm going to do a think aloud on what I need you to be able to do about 10 after 1.
The I do component, the teacher-directed piece, is brief, not lengthy.
By the time you leave here, hopefully you have your questions answered.
I do is the opportunity for teachers to demonstrate what it is that they want students to know.
A concrete example of exactly what students will need to know and be able to do.
I think it would help if I showed you what that looks like with a partner.
Direct instruction ensures that the teacher provides a model, that the teacher then provides supports and structure.
We guided them through, they were allowed to volunteer, but we were doing the problem. We modeled the problem for them.
Remember our equation, A equals P times B.
We walked them through the problem. We practiced the problem with them. We made sure they understood the problem.
Hand up this time. How do I get X alone?
How many do we have over here? 0. And then count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I find that the more modeling I do, the less chance for error when they are practicing on their own or with a partner later.
During the we do phase of direct instruction, the teacher works collaboratively with the students.
We do is the opportunity for guided practice, where the teachers work with the students together.
What I would like a volunteer to do is to come up here and take these 6 counters and put them into 2 different groups for me. Corby, go ahead.
The teacher ensures during the we do component that the students have mastered the skill or content that had been presented.
I did several we do's in this lesson because I needed to feel comfortable that they were ready to be sent off, and the way that I do that is to make sure that they are all involved in the lesson at some time or another.
Only after teachers are comfortable that students have it will you see them then allow students to practice independently.
Each of you is going to have a certain job within that group.
Talk amongst yourselves, pick those people.
The third stage, the you do, is the independent practice.
Success breeds success. And we don't want to set kids off onto independent practice that we know they haven't mastered.
You do is the opportunity for students to show and demonstrate what it is that they've learned and mastered.
Excellent job.
Giving them the steps to make them successful and then letting them do it by themselves.
The key component of direct instruction is that the students do not practice errors.
Release them, I pull them back in with me, and all the time it's a continuous assessment.
And you are going to work together with your partner to come up with a name collection for a number that I give you.
We gave them their own problems, set them loose, and then went around to make sure that they were still using the concepts that we gave them to make sure that they were successful.
How can I spend time with individual students who are struggling? What I do is I bounce around from team to team and I make sure everybody's on the same page.
Good direct instruction allows a teacher to manage the instructional design and the environment to ensure student mastery.
Very good. A name collection is different ways of grouping numbers.
I hope this has been instructive and will be useful as you plan and deliver your lessons.
It's another great video, and one of the things or a couple of things that I really loved about it was I love that it talked about how important the teacher modeling is. It's brief. It's not something that goes on. You're not going on for 20 minutes, obviously, doing a model, but you're providing enough models or enough of a model or enough models so that the students are able then to go into the we do where you're doing that guided practice. And remember that when you're providing models, you're actually helping to reduce the errors because you're showing them exactly how you, for example, complete an addition problem, and you're talking through your thought process through a think aloud. Then you're going to move into that guided practice, and that's where you're supporting students, super interactive, and you're assessing the entire time. And when you can see that your students have reached mastery, let's say that they've reached 80%, now that they've reached 80%, we're ready to move in to that independent practice. Now, I don't want you to be confused, and we're going to get it deeper into each one of these. In independent practice, it's not like, hey, go off and do it on yourself. You're continuing to monitor your students. If your students are working at their desk, you are moving around. You are, checking in with students, seeing how they're doing. You might walk up to a student and say, hey, can you tell me how you completed that problem? Or you're checking to see, oh, wait, we've got two students over here who are just sitting and they're looking confused. I need to go in and still provide them support. So again, in independence, not like just go off and do it on yourself, but that's opportunity for you to assess their independent level of attainment, of acquiring that skill. Where are they? What is their, where, for example, let's see, they were able to do, I gave them 10 problems that were long addition, and they got 9 out of 10 correct. Look at that. Now, we don't just count one time for mastery. We're going to see mastery across sessions, across assessments, across quizzes, for example. But it shows you, hey, look, today they are showing mastery at 90%. So again, we're going to go deeper into those, but those are just some examples and gives you a good overview, I believe, about what explicit instruction is. And you can find both of these videos on our Canvas website. All right, that is the end of part 3 of Introduction to Explicit Instruction. Let me know how you're doing. Give yourself a check-in on your understanding. You got it? You're getting it okay? I'm completely lost. And remember that on your homework, the last question you're going to have, the last line you're going to have is questions, and list your questions underneath that. All right, I'll see you in our next video.